So Gina, Diddy's girl, she was not in those videos. And when she was pregnant with him, like for him, he asked her to have an abortion and offered her $50,000. But she said no, she didn't want the money and still had the procedure. How does she make her money? That's really interesting because he was giving money left and right to Cassie. And Cassie was on those videos because she was pretty much paid to be a hoe. And then when you look at Jane Doe, the exact same thing. Those videos were of two women, but Gina wasn't in those videos. Wow. So it brings me to my next point. That's probably why Gina went on the show that she went on to talk about what she went through with Diddy. Because she was just getting stuff off her chest, but she wasn't afraid of being exposed because she didn't do anything in those videos. And that's why, as well, she didn't have to go to court. This is all my thoughts. Okay, I'm the one alleging this. She didn't have to go to court because she didn't need immunity, right? The other girls did need immunity because they were involved in that whole entire taking over the entertainer workers. They were also paying for the entertainers, even though Diddy was reimbursing them, right? They were still initiating it. They were choosing what guy they wanted. They were like, yeah, come on over. Like, let's do this. Let's get it done. So they were really involved in the whole entire process. Now, Gina, she wasn't. You see, when Jane Doe and Diddy were intimate, Diddy asked her, should we bring someone else in the bedroom? Like, what do you think about that? Do you find that interesting? And Jane Doe said, yeah, okay, let's do it. She was a little deaky herself. And then once it started to happen, there was no way she could stop it because she opened up the floodgates. I wonder, did Diddy ask Gina as well? Did Diddy ever say to Gina, hey, how about we bring a third party in the bedroom? Gina's pretty tough. Gina is a tough chick, and I think she just wanted Diddy, and she probably said, no, I'm not into that. Because remember, Jane Doe didn't like Gina. She said Gina was negative. Gina is a negative influence. And I don't believe that. I think she admired Gina somewhere deep down because she's like, Gina is the strong one. Gina is the one that keeps getting back in. And why? Where does Gina get her money from? How come she wasn't doing those intimacy parties? Was Diddy giving her some money somewhere along the way? Because remember, when she was on that podcast, she said Diddy offered her $50,000 to terminate the pregnancy, and she said no to Diddy because she didn't want to be seen as one of that type of woman. You know, the woman who just wants to take money from him. So I've been thinking about this and I'm like, yeah, Gina now wants to go and speak on Diddy's behalf, even though she already spoke about what she did in the podcast. But I do believe that the reason why she wants to speak on Diddy's behalf right now is because some part of her can see that he was ill. He was under the influence a lot of the times. He was doing things, now she knows, he wasn't pushing her to do the things that Cassie agreed to do and that Jane Doe agreed to do. Quite often he would say to her, Cassie's the good one. Cassie's the good one. You're the bad one. And that's what he would say to Gina. That's what Gina said he said, allegedly, right? Why was Cassie the good one? Because she wanted to do the things that Diddy wanted her to do in the bedroom? She was just easygoing, you know, but Gina didn't want to do those things. And so when I look at it like that, I'm like, yeah, Gina's probably thinking, I didn't need to go on that podcast and talk all the business. She's probably thinking, why did I go on that podcast to do that? That was our private business. Yeah, you know, like that's stuff that happens in many relationships. Unfortunately, it does. DV is something that is more common than we even want to recognize or understand. DV in the United States is something that is way out of hand. Here where I live in the Dominican Republic, there's something called femicide. So a lot of the women, they get into arguments with their men, and before you know it, we're hearing of a femicide, you know? Now, DV in the United States, like I said, it's not just with a certain race. It's not just with a certain class. There are very wealthy men out there that are beating on their wives. And there's very impoverished men out there that are beating on their wives. And likewise, men are also getting hit by women. There's a lot of women out there who are hand happy, and you'd be so surprised. And men don't want to admit it because men are embarrassed by it. They feel like a woman is beating them down. Their woman can beat them. And you know what? It could be that, no, the woman can't beat them down. No, the woman is not stronger than him. It's just that he's too much of a gentleman and he loves her so much that he's not willing to lay his hands on her. And then it could be that, yes, she is stronger than him and she can beat him down to the ground. I was watching a TikTok video the other day of some guy outside of a complex, and there was a woman as well, and he said something very inappropriate to her, and she took off her top. She walked over towards him, took him, and boom, plowed him down to the ground more than a few times. And that wasn't his lover. That was his neighbor. And she was like, I'm sorry. You're not going to make me feel this way today. Sorry. And she beat the crap out of him. So yes, some women are stronger than some men. But when it comes down to it, when men are being beat in their relationships, sometimes, they just don't know where to get the help. They don't know. They're embarrassed. So when Gina went out on that podcast, she was literally looking for someone to talk to. She was literally, I believe, coerced into it. They're like, yo, just come on, say your part. And this was way before she even knew what was happening in the courts. This is way before maybe she knew that there was something happening in the courts, but she just thought it was a civil lawsuit. And she was probably like, yeah, whatever. He'll pay Cassie some money for whatever. And yeah, it's true. He does hit and pull and punch and whatever. But she didn't believe for the life of her that it would get as serious as it did. And that Diddy quite possibly could have gotten charged with that RICO. When she saw that, she was probably like, OMG, holy smoly macaroni. And she said she's not going to court because she realized that, DV is it's horrible. It really is. But then she probably realized that, it doesn't mean that he should go to jail for the rest of his life and lose everything, so she loved him. And sometimes that's what happens in relationships like that. Do I think that he's not going to be, do I think that he's completely changed? No, I don't. I don't believe it at all. I believe that it takes a lot more than just being in prison for 1 year. But I do believe that he's getting the help that he needs in order to become a better person. I do believe that the help that he is getting right now is the help that he needs in order to become a better person for the rest of his life. I do believe that in the past, there are things that he did do that didn't even come out in the courtroom, But what did come out in the courtroom does not warrant him to go to prison for the rest of his life. So the law is the law. The law is the law. So we really have to look at what the law is. And so Gina, she's like, wow, I aired all of our private business to the world. And I'm not going to do that again. And I will speak on his behalf because we have been having conversations. I'm just assuming that they have phone call conversations. And she's probably seeing some change in his personality. Because remember, he's not talking to Jane Doe any longer, hopefully. He's not talking to Cassie any longer. So his other go-to girl, and his go-to girl all the time, was Gina. So he's probably talking to her on the phone. And, you know, when he gets his calling privileges, and he probably talks to her on the phone and says, hey, what's up? And she's probably noticed a change in him. And she's probably thinking that she's the one that's going to win in the end. And she's going to be the one that will be with him till the end. I wouldn't be surprised if those two did get together and called it a commitment when he does get out. Thank you so much for joining me, guys. My name is Sister Cerise. I'm so happy that you're here. Do me a favor, go ahead and hit subscribe. Go ahead and hit that like button. Do me another favor, please. Visit my other channel called Fairfax Files. It is a true crime channel. But the biggest favor that you can do for me today is actually for you. And that is to be kind to yourself. Be good to yourself. You deserve it. Remember, tomorrow's not promised, so make the best of today. I'll see you next video. Thank you for being here. Have an amazing day today.